video about rebuilding Spraymation pumps. I'd like to introduce Roger Ledford. He's one of our experienced pump technicians. And go at it, build us a fluid section.
Okay. Alright, we start off building the fluid section. This is called the fluid tube adapter section. This is going to be the Spraymation 388250 fluid section. It has all the new parts that the engineering department has come up with, added to it. The first thing is make sure it's clean inside before you even start. The first step is to insert the rod bearing piece into the fluid tube adapter. The next, you have a male and a female adapter for the rawhide fittings to go on. You want to make sure you put the male in next, that it sits right down on top of there.
It points up, right?
Points up. The cone part is facing up. Now you want to lubricate all around in that area a little bit. I always lubricate when I'm doing this part, because you have 5 different rawhide pieces that have to fit in there, and they go in with the groove. Let me show this. The pyramid groove, as you see it, it'll fit right onto the fitting. So you want the pyramid top to be pointed part to be up, and each one of these will go down in there. There's a little snug, so you got to make sure you press them down evenly. I put a little bit of lubricant on each and every one that I, again, down, a little more lubricant, down, a little more. You can see it's starting to build up. Okay, this is the 4th rawhide that I'm installing. You want to very easily go around with a small screwdriver, because they start getting a little close to the top. With your magic little plastic, press them down a little bit. And for the last one, a little more Vaseline. Now we're going to insert the last one. Now this is the one that you got to make sure is go around slowly with the little screwdriver, pushing down at the same time. And there they are. They're all in there, correct distance. A little more lubricant around. Now we're going to put the female top on side, top on. See the open area here sits on the cone part of the rawhide. Install your fitting here. Do not tighten down on it, because you're going to squish the rawhides. Okay. At this point, we're going to go to set this aside, and we're going to go to the piston rod. Piston rod. The first thing you're going to do with the piston rod is insert the small one with the 4 small holes over the end of it. You have 2 O-rings. Insert 1. You will insert 2. A little bit of Vaseline lubricant.
Now all the O-rings in the fluid section are the brown type, right?
The round type. except for the backup washer
Okay.
on the fluid tube, and the bottom one has a flat one too,
Okay.
backup.
But the O-rings are brown.
But the O-rings on the inside here are round. You can't make a mistake. Okay. Next, we're going to build the piston. This is the piston. This is the backup washer. The backup washer means what it said, back up. So it's going to be behind the seal, piston seal. The open part faces away from the backup washer at this side. This piston seal goes on same way. Backup washer in the back of. So now you have backup washer seal, piston, backup washer seal.
And the backup washer goes next to the closed side of the
The
seal.
closed side of the seal, correct. So, you take this, gently slide it on, and that's supposed to be flush, as you see, like that. And you got both seals in the same direction, with the backup washers in the correct place,
Pointing away from that end.
pointing away from that end. The next one is the top one. It has two small holes in it. And this is your seat. Seat ball, the small one. Okay? Right now, before you forget, you want to drop your seat ball in there. But before you do that, you want to look in there and make sure that the roll pin or Allen screw, whatever one is in there, is in there. That keeps the ball at the correct height for it to work properly. So you drop the little ball in there, lay it down, put the seat through the hole, put a little bit of 262 glue, not down there in the end because you don't want to, just that. That helps seal it when you tighten down on it. Make sure your ball's in there. Now your Loctite's getting into the threads. And tighten it. Take a 1/2" wrench and hold this in, the flattened. Another 1/2" wrench. Snugly tighten the seat. Your piston rod is ready to insert. Okay. You take the adapter, fluid tube, start it into here, put it down, push slowly. Now you've got it started. You're up here like this and you're in. This, just snug, or you'll flatten the rawhide and it'll leak. This is fluid tube. Fluid tube has two O-rings. A flat backup washer O-ring. Backup means exactly what it says, in back of. That goes on first, and then your round washer O-ring. And that completes the fluid tube. What we want to do now, I'm going to, the reason I'm using Vaseline in here is so instead of the black assembly paste is because you don't want all your stuff to be pumping out black. The other one was okay because it was inside the air motor and didn't go anywhere. But if you got black goop in here, as a customer, you'd be getting probably black stuff coming out of your gun. So now that that's well lubricated, you lubricate the O-rings and backup washer.
Roger, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
If you were rebuilding a pump, how would you inspect that fluid tube to know it's a good one?
Well, you'd have to look in it and make sure there's no scratches with the light on it. make sure it's clean. Clean it, wash some water and soap and a rag, and make sure you got it clean first. That it's not dry glue on there that you're seeing. Make sure you see no scratches or gouges. If you do, the fluid tube is no good anymore. You got to replace the fluid tube.
Okay. I probably should have asked the same thing about the piston rod.
The piston rod too. If you take that apart and it's got scratches, gouges, anything that looks abnormal, it's not nice and smooth and shiny, got to replace it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Now the new parts that engineering has come up with that are in here now helps that not happen that often anymore. Wiggle it over the bottom part, come up together, lubricate the O-rings a little bit inside here. Push with a turning, there it popped in. It's turning, it's seated, it's there. So you have the fluid tube with the fluid adapter right there. This is the bottom part. This is the seating part that uses the large ball. Make sure this is clean inside here too when you start. You drop the large ball into there. You've got a roll pin holes that hold it in. Make sure it's flush with the sides. A little bit more. There we have it. The ball has to be able to move. You hear the ball moving. This also gets a backup washer and a round washer on it. This is the flat backup washer. Make sure it's resting nice and flat around on this groove. Round washer. And now you have the O-rings in proper place. I'm going to give them a little taste of the Vaseline. A little bit in here. Same way. Twisting motion, pushing, snapped in position correctly. Done deal. The only thing you have left now is the fluid adapter fitting that goes into the threaded area of the fluid adapter, and it's tightened down nice and snugly. There you have your finished fluid section, ready to be put on to your air motor. And that's it. Simple.
Great, thank you, Roger.
Okay, so now we've completely assembled the air motor section of the pump. We've completely assembled the fluid section of the pump. Our next task is to put them together to make one unit. Okay, and the first step in doing that is you need to remove the 3 previously plate glass things from around the fluid area. You are going to take a little bit of Loctite and put it on the threads of the fluid tube rod. Then insert it into the air motor section, screwing it in as far as possible.
Okay, that's it.
You can see by hand. when it stops. Now you want to use your wrenches. This is a 1 1/8 inch wrench. You're going to need at least that big to hold this unit in place while you tighten it with a thin as you can 1/2 inch wrench. Nice and snug so you know it's not going to come loose. Now you want to clean the excess Loctite to make it a nice clean assembly. And there you have the connection between the two. Push down this till it bottoms out, and that part is done. The next thing you want to do is take the 3 tie rods and screw them into the 3 threaded spots on your base plate. Normally the fluid inlet fitting will be at this position on this rod compared to this front of this here when you're doing this. It usually winds up in that position on your drum cover that will go initially into your filter and so on when you tighten it down. That's basically where you want to have it when you tighten it down. Takes a couple of minutes and they'll go down. You know they're a little stiff, they do go in easy. And you want to go as far as they'll go, bottoming them out. Okay, those are all 3 in now. The next part that goes on is the ring that holds them in place, and the fluid section that snaps over the 3 tie rods. Then you have 3 self-locking nuts that will screw onto here. And those will be put into place by a 9/16 wrench, tightened down. Then a little bit of one and then moving on to the other one. So you take them down evenly. Nice and snug and in position. The last thing you want to do is to install your fluid connector that goes out to your filter. This could vary. It could be an elbow, depending. It could be a straight. I'm just putting a straight on there to show you how it goes in there. But an elbow would go down and up, depending on what it's used for, wall mount, whatever. But basically, there is your completed full pump. You can now replace the windows, and we can run it up and down a little bit with a little air. seems to be working fine. Once the fluid gets in there, or glue, whatever material, it'll be nice and smooth, nothing sounding. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Mounted it to a wall mount unit. It's going to go either in a drum, wall mount, whatever, bucket. But right now we have it on a wall mount. We have our water-soluble oil to be pumped into it for our test today. We have our compressed air over here. This is a 50-to-1 pump. We're putting in 40 pounds, which gives us 2,000 psi pressure right now. Okay, so few things you want to look at. You see my plastic guards are not in place here. You never want to run it like this without the guards on. I'm just doing it to show you for the test. But that keeps fingers from pinching, fingers from being pinched off, and whatever. But you definitely want to keep these guards on when it's in use. Okay. One of the things we talked about was the alignment of the shaft with the shaft. So it's center. And if you look down here, you can't see it from there, but this shaft is practically center cut. In other words, it's perfect right now, the way it is. But if you was off a little bit to side, you would have to loosen these bolts under here, so you would have movement with this to line it up so it would be centered. And then you could tighten these back up. That's how you get it centered. There's not a lot of movement, but there's enough where you can get it better if it's not in the center.
Can we pause for a second?
The spacing around here is practically perfect.
It's uniform. Okay. There you go. Okay.
Now, the other adjustment is the pressure nut pack onto your packing rawhides. Like I told you before when I showed you the assembly, you don't want to tighten down too far or you crush the packing rawhides.
Have you done any more than just your finger tight so far?
No, I have not done any more than tighten it till I normally feel it's tightened.
And right now this pump is pressurized.
Yes.
And it's not leaking.
And it's not leaking
with water.
With the water soluble.
Oil, yes.
Oil, right. So if you have to make a tightening adjustment, you want to release the pressure. And all of these little holes here in this packing nut will let you bring a... Okay, this packing nut here has all your holes all the way around it so that you can grab it in any position to either loosen it or tighten it. You can move over to here if you need to tighten it some more. And that's why there's so many holes in it, so you can get it in any position to loosen or tighten the packing. Now, I found in my years of doing these that when I initially make these, like I showed you in the film, how I hand tightened it down, that if I over tightened it by hand, sometimes I would have a little leakage at first till it ran a while. But if I had it just perfectly hand tightened, there would be no fluid at all showing on the rod. So to me, this can be over tightened easier than under tightened.
So
And
you
it
would,
can cause you a leak.
so you'd recommend erring on the side of looseness rather than tightness.
Yes, I would recommend tighten it pretty snug by hand and then running it to see how it runs before you do any tightening or loosening. If you see a lot of fluid coming out of here when you start tightening, running it, then it's either too loose or too tight. But if you see it nice and dry right in the beginning, you pretty much got it pretty good. So that's my thing on the tightening of the rawhides and packing. Otherwise, just make sure you have your guards on there when you put it into service, and your pressure correct. This is a 55 psi that is put on all these new pumps now. So if you go over the pressure 55, it's going to go off. so you can't run the pump until you lower the pressure. Okay, and this is our pressure regulator right here. It's set at 40 psi, like I told you before. So you should be at a 50-to-1 pump. You should be getting about 2,000 pounds. Now we've started it into its test mode. It's cycling. Each one of those is a shot. Before we installed this noise deflection system that the engineering came up with, it was a very loud sound came out of there every time the pump turned over. Right now it's a very nice low sound. It's practically nothing now, which was a very good idea doing that.
Can you tell us a little bit how to identify motions on the shaft that might be a problem?
Motion on the shaft, you're going to see maybe scratches in the shaft.
I was trying to ask about how it moves. See how nice and smooth it moves? So if you were cavitating or a check valve is bad?
Oh, okay. Yeah, right now it's running at a nice smooth pace. In other words, it has no air in it probably. It's putting out a nice amount of material. If it's cavitating, you might get something like this. It's not. It's sucking air. A gun could be leaking. But when it's a closed-in system like this for testing, you can pretty much test the pump for itself to see that it's not really the pump's problem. That it could be something else, a gun, a hose, whatever. But this pump seems to be working very well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for showing us how to rebuild and test the pump.
You're welcome. Hopefully it'll be easier for you from now on.